So I'm not sure how time flew by so fast, but my 20s are done. I'm in my 30s now, and inspired by a whole bunch of other videos I saw that were similar to this one, I decided to throw my hat in the ring and talk about 10 big lessons I learned from a beautiful decade of life. Let's get started. Number 1, you can intellectualize anything. This wasn't the biggest lesson I learned, but it was the first one chronologically. You see, when I first turned 20, I was still a student at the University of Miami, and I was struggling to figure out what exactly my belief system was for life. I didn't know where or how to derive my morality, and as I looked around, I saw plenty of attractive options like atheism and Christianity mainly, but even Buddhism and New Age spirituality caught my attention. As I explored these options of what to believe, I would explore the rationality and logic behind each in an attempt to search for the objective truth. I thought, well, all these belief systems fundamentally contradict each other, so they can't all be true at once. That means that if I seek the truth, one of these will clearly be logical, while the others fall apart and make no sense. At least, that was my naive way of thinking back then. After trying to figure out what's what for months, and doing all sorts of research, and watching all types of debates, an epiphany dawned on me that changed my life. They all made sense. Sure, the premises you had to accept to get them to make sense were wildly different, but you could get to a place where any of these beliefs could make perfect sense. And then an alternate epiphany hit me at nearly the same time. They were all nonsense. I could build straw mans for all of them and turn them into arguments that had no basis in reality. And then the final epiphany that tied it all together. I'm the one who's in charge of what I'm interpreting. It may sound obvious, but what it means is that it's exceedingly difficult to arrive to an objective truth. Like, what does that even mean? What does it look like? In reality, the truth is what I make it when it comes to these giant universal questions like, why am I here and what's my purpose? It ultimately means that I can logic my way into anything if I wanted to. I could convince myself that Christianity is the ultimate truth and atheism is hogwash, or I could convince myself that atheism was the gold standard and Christianity was all about an old man in the sky. Whatever it was that I believed in, it was a choice, and I made it. Now, I'm not smart enough to arrive to something as grand as an objective truth. So there's no way for me to learn whether I'm really right or wrong, at least not in this lifetime. So all I can do is try my best and live with the consequences. A side effect of coming to this realization was having more sympathy for my fellow man. The person who believes the exact opposite of what I do isn't necessarily an idiot. He or she is just trying their best and arrive to a different conclusion. And truly, you can logic your way into anything. Millions of Americans logic their way into believing black people deserve to be slaves. Millions of Germans logic their way into believing that the Jews needed to be exterminated. And sometimes we sit here decades and centuries later and think how evil, how stupid these people were, while forgetting that it's possible to make anything make sense. Even those belief systems had to have logic somewhere at their base to convince the leaders of those movements to do what they did. And we like to think that we wouldn't have been convinced to follow these insane dictums if we lived in those times. But I have a feeling a lot of us are lying to ourselves about that. I think most of us would have chosen to fall in line. Why? Because you can intellectualize anything. And that's a very powerful and dangerous reality. Number 2, defining what you believe in is pivotal. Even after you realize that you're in total control of what you believe and why you believe it, the job's not done. You have to define what it is you actually believe in. Choose something and stick to it. Live it out. Don't float through life without making it absolutely concrete. Here's why you shouldn't just shrug it off and say, I don't care about what I believe in, or I believe whatever suits me that day. People who do that, they're flimsy. They flip from one type of person to another type of person, from day to day or from situation to situation. You want to be reliable and dependable. and that means you need to be consistent. If you keep changing, people won't know what to expect from you, and they'll be less likely to give you friendship, opportunity, love, everything. Being a consistent human is fundamentally good for helping you find your tribe, and we all need a tribe. So in order to stay consistent, you need to define what it is you believe in as much as possible, to the point of writing it down if it's not already written clearly somewhere that you can reference. What you believe in informs your behavior more than any other factor, as it gives you principles of right and wrong and defines success and failure for you. And then after you've defined those things for yourself, your life will naturally attempt to align more with your definition of good and successful, and you'll naturally try to avoid the bad and the failures. Of course, nobody is perfect, so you'll still have lapses from time to time, and that's okay. Be patient with yourself, but at the very least, you'll know what overall direction your life should be moving. And that will attract like-minded people who will help you on your journey and who will make that journey more meaningful than it ever would have been alone. To live a purposeful life, the base foundation of what you need to do is define what you believe in. It's pivotal. Number 3, your mortality is real. When you're younger, if you've been blessed enough to not come face to face with death, you tend to live your life as Superman. In your youth, you're invincible. You're aware that death is a thing that exists, but it's far away in the background somewhere. Even if you don't act invincible, you feel invincible because you are. You've never come face to face with anything that can stop you. Unfortunately, if you live your life for long enough, death is an inevitability. And no matter who you speak to, one of the uniting points of the human experience is our first real experience of death. You can attend a funeral or see someone pass away and not really experience the fullness of what death signifies. It's not until it comes close enough to touch you that you finally begin to understand the implications. When death inevitably happens to a close friend or a close family member, or God forbid it knocks on your door and announces itself, it changes your life irreversibly. You suddenly understand the true finality of life and everything that means. For me, that lesson was given in my 20s, and I think a lot of people relate. The takeaways are different for everyone, but the lesson remains the same. Your mortality is real. At a certain point, you finally realize that you won't be here forever. Now, there's a deep, deep sadness in that, but there's also a silver lining because you're still here right now. And the fact that you won't be someday means that this day matters a whole lot more than you previously thought. It means you should appreciate every last detail of life while you still can. It means that you should attempt to make each day a masterpiece because there's no guarantee that you get to tomorrow. So make today your magnum opus in case tomorrow is the curtain call. It means your friendships and relationships are even more valuable because they can't last forever. So you shouldn't take them for granted. It means little things, little frustrating annoyances should stay very little as possible, so that you don't spend too much of your life focused on stupid little things. It means you should do everything in your power to get rid of the sources of anger and sadness and hatred in your heart so you can spend your limited time left in positivity and not negativity. All of that because your mortality is real. Number 4, love is the most important force in the universe. The lesson about my mortality taught me about the impermanence of life, and that fact finally creates a hierarchy in my life. I'm reminded here of a quote from the great Henry David Thoreau. A man has not everything to do, but something, and because he cannot do everything, it is not necessary that he should do something wrong. There's a lot to unpack there, but the basis is simple enough. Life is short, so you can't do everything you want to do. Only some of the things you want to do will get done. So you have to prioritize. You have to find the most important things and focus on those and try your hardest to avoid what's wrong because, again, life is too short to waste time on the wrong things. So what's the right thing to do with your life? Well, I would start by finding your loves and branching off from there. I think everyone would agree that a life lived full of love is a life worth living. So try to fill your life with love, because love is the ultimate power of humanity. It's what separates us from all other living creatures, our unbounded capacity for love and for pursuing love against all detraction. And I'm talking about every kind of love. You should search for romantic love, because you deserve a partner who's going to be with you through the ups and the downs, someone who will know you as fully as it's possible to know someone, someone who's going to support you and be with you through the hardest times, someone who just won't allow you to live your life alone. But it's about more than just romantic love. You should cultivate relational love. Your parents, they gave you life. Whether they're worthy of connection is sadly a whole other conversation. But if they are worthy of connection, you should connect with them deeply. You should find other people, siblings, cousins, friends, strangers. You should find people and you should love them and experience great love in return. You should spend time with people who actually want to be around you. And you should radically self-love. You should spend time in solitude and find out more about yourself. Explore your hobbies, learn a skill, write a book, make some music. You should build yourself up and tell yourself how valuable you are, how beautiful you are, and how worth it you are. You should pursue love in every single aspect of your life. It may not be achievable, but you should strive to fill every waking moment with love. Brush your teeth because you love taking care of yourself. Take your kids to school and sit through that awful traffic because you love your kids. Work the dull parts of your career because in the end, you love your job, or at least you love the company's mission, or at the very least, you love the people around you and you want to help them succeed and you want to succeed yourself. When a part of your life is void of love, fix it. Inject love into it, or find a new situation that you can love. Life may be short, but the power of love is infinite. When your life fades, what you leave behind will be the love you've given to this world, and that's why love is the most important force in the universe. Number 5, true love is painful. Another difficult lesson I had to learn is that my childish conception of love was incorrect. You see, in my youth, I thought of love as this colorful cartoon filled with rainbows and butterflies, and I just thought love was continuous goodness all the time. If it brought sadness or anger or frustration or pain, that couldn't be love, because how could you love something and hurt it? How could love cause someone to feel badly? That couldn't be love then. But I was wrong. And where I went wrong was viewing life as a cross-section instead of as a full, continuous lifetime. What I mean by that is that I was looking at life as this moment-to-moment thing, and all I cared about was what was happening right now. But the past matters too. And even the future that isn't guaranteed or here yet matters. The whole picture matters, past, present, and future. By focusing on how something made me feel sad or angry or in pain, I was only focusing on the now without paying any attention to what context the past was giving or what beauty the future would hold. Because love, if it's real, is concerned with the whole picture. It's a balancing act of understanding past, present, and future to arrive to what's ultimately best for you. It's why as a kid, your parents sometimes told you, hey, no more candy. Because sometimes love is letting your kid eat the chocolate bar so he can have some joy in his life right now. And that joy is a good thing, it's a loving thing. But sometimes love is taking away the candy bar and making him cry. Because if he's already had a bunch of candy in his past, you don't want his future to be affected by horrible things like addiction or obesity or even the lack of self-control. Sometimes love is inflicting pain in that moment so that you're able to live your life more plentifully later. And that counts towards every aspect of love. Sometimes love is forgiving a partner who has totally wronged you, because as much as it pains you, it'll make them a better person, and it'll give you more love and peace in the long run. Sometimes love is doing that annoying errand for your parent, because even though it's a total waste of time and it doesn't make any sense and their way of doing it is so dumb, it makes them happy. Sometimes love is spending hours playing the same boring piece over and over again so you can eventually master it and perform it. Sometimes love is running and being totally out of breath, and your legs are hurting and your body feels like it's on fire, but you keep running because it's good for you. At a certain point, you have to realize that part of love is sacrifice. And that sacrifice can feel pretty bad in the moment, because true love is painful, but it's worth it. Number 6, time, not money, is the ultimate currency. I spent a lot of my 20s worried about my finances in one way or another. I thought a lot about how to make money, how to be wealthy, how to get rich. I wanted very desperately to be financially successful. And I wanted it so that I could buy whatever it was that I wanted. I wanted to be able to buy whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I wanted to be able to travel the world, flying first class, staying in 5-star hotels, and eating at Michelin-star restaurants. I wanted to buy clothes that would make other people stop and gawk at me in jealousy. I wanted to own the greatest guitars on earth, the coolest cameras, the best video game equipment. I wanted a mansion with a pool on a mountain overlooking the ocean. I wanted it all. But at some point, I learned the lesson that life doesn't really get all that much better the more stuff you have. I've been blessed enough to say I've had some pretty good stuff as well as some pretty crappy stuff in my life, but at the end, it's all just stuff anyway. Of course, there are some essentials that everyone could benefit from, and that money can buy: good food, a good bed, a way to get from point A to point B, a good roof over your head, good clothes to wear. But once you have those things, the quality of your life really doesn't rise much as you acquire more of that stuff or better versions of that stuff. Material items are just material items. They don't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. Now, don't get me wrong, I still want to be wealthy one day. I still want to achieve financial freedom, but it's for an entirely different reason than before, and it makes all the difference. I want to make a lot of money so that I can have the time to pursue whatever I want to pursue. I want to have the best camera equipment because I love videography and I want to make the best videos. I want to own a nice home so that I can invite people into my home to break bread and have a good time. I want to travel because I love the natural world and I want to see as much of it as possible before my time's up. Money is important, sure, but in reality, what I need in order to do any of those things is time. Money is only important because it buys me time, and I can use that time to really explore life to the fullest. But money deserves to go in its proper place. It needs to buy your essentials, and then the most important thing you can do is convert your money into either necessities for others or more time for you to pursue what you love. That's because time, and not money, is the ultimate currency. Number 7, diet and exercise are key. We all know that the healthcare industry is worth billions upon billions, if not trillions of dollars. Every single year, an unimaginable amount of money is spent researching and developing medicines to fight diseases, and while we absolutely need to do that for some diseases, I'd make the argument that we already know the cure to a lot of the killer diseases that are out there. Take heart disease as one of many examples. Scientists and doctors work tirelessly to try and find remedies or cures for people with heart disease, but the cures they're trying to find are cures to reverse damage that's already done, and that's tough. But what if the damage isn't done yet? I, like most Americans, love food, especially fatty, greasy, tasty food. I'm also young, and I'll tell you what, if I would have continued down the path I was on when I was 26 or 27 years old, I would have died of a heart attack at 45. I had multiple doctors tell me that. My cholesterol readings were that out of control, and it's not that far-fetched. My own father died of a heart attack at 47, and I was headed down that exact same path. But thankfully, there's a cure for that heart attack I was gonna get. There's also a cure for that cancer that you might get later in life. There's a cure to the liver disease you might develop. There's a cure to that hip replacement surgery that you might need later. There's a cure for like at least 50% of the things that can destroy your life or kill you outright tomorrow. The cure to the diseases that can kill you tomorrow is diet and exercise today. I still struggle to this day with that idea because I had such a strong addiction to food, but I try to remember the other priorities I've outlined in this list, and specifically that I need time to pursue what I love. And while they say you can't buy extra time at the end of your life, like no matter how much money you have, there's no one you can write a check to for $1 million who can actually extend your life by even a minute. But even so, there is a way to buy time. You can buy more life. You can buy the ability to fulfill more of your purpose and pursue more of your loves. It's just not something that money can buy. One of the only currencies that can buy you more life is proper diet and proper exercise. It's an obvious lesson that not enough of us take very seriously. That living a long life means remembering that diet and exercise are key. Number 8, reading and writing are major key. You only get one body, which is why you should nurture it with diet and exercise. But something we don't talk about often enough is that you also only get one mind. And your mind, too, needs to be nurtured. In this regard, I speak not from any sort of scientific research, though I'm fairly confident that there are studies to back up my position here. Rather, I speak from personal experience. Reading and writing are absurdly good for your brain. The use of the word absurd in that previous sentence was very purposeful because it truly feels like an absurdity to sit here and reflect on my life and the experiences I've had with good books and simple journaling, and to understand just how effective it has been in keeping me sharp, motivated, and intentional. It's frustratingly effective. So effective, in fact, that I found nothing that can match its efficacy. School and class and teachers and friends and all of that was all nice. But I feel that 95% of the learning that I experienced at school was due to reading and writing in some way. And that without that, it probably would have been borderline meaningless to have gone to school at all. Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. It forces imagination. It illuminates new paths. It opens new perspectives. I just finished reading Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe earlier this year. Highly recommended, by the way. And it's insane for me to consider how an author who has been dead for nearly 2 centuries is still somehow reaching across time and space to give me an inside look into that time period, as well as an inside look into the nature of humanity. That is indescribably special. And then writing? Don't even get me started on writing. Writing is how a video like this one even comes into existence in the first place. If you would write down every word you said during the day, and then reviewed the transcript at the end of the night, you would be astonished at how nonsensical you sounded. So little logic, so many ums and buts, and so many non sequiturs. Your thoughts are a mess. And I'm not singling you out. My thoughts are a mess too. Everyone's are. It's part of being human. But writing is the act of intentionally organizing those thoughts. And just the simple act of organizing these thoughts forces you into understanding yourself a little bit more. Writing is self-knowledge, and what appears on the page is a reflection of your very soul. I could go on, but you get the point. Reading and writing are major key. Number 9, joy and peace over happiness and pleasure. This one is a more difficult lesson to truly grasp because lots of people confuse happiness with pleasure with joy. They're all synonyms, but let me define each one briefly so that you understand where I'm coming from. First, pleasure. Pleasure is the animalistic instinct inside of you being rewarded. It's gratification for the sake of gratification, and it comes in many, many forms. Sex is the most obvious vehicle for pleasure as it fulfills your animal instincts, but so does a juicy burger, for instance, with large fries. So does winning a jackpot at a casino and winning 20 grand. So does spending that 20 grand on new clothes. So does getting 1 million views on something you post on Instagram. Getting the picture? Pleasure fulfills your base desires, and it fulfills them quickly and gives you a rush of good sensations. Now, happiness is a cousin to pleasure, though they're not exactly the same. Happiness is the positive feeling you get from just being in a good mood. It's not going to give you the same ecstatic bliss that pleasure does, but it will make you feel good. Happiness is having a good partner who treats you well. Happiness is getting a good job and then keeping that good job because you actually like it. Happiness is traveling to a brand new location and seeing some really cool sights and trying some good new food. Happiness is just a good mood. Joy is the last one, and I call it joy and peace because according to my definition, you can't really have one without the other. Joy is the satisfaction with and the appreciation for life in and of itself. Joy is inner peace even in the midst of outer chaos. Joy is mental health and having the correct tools to deal with your situation. Joy is radical self-purpose and self-fulfillment. The lesson that life taught me in my 20s was that joy is the highest form of these positive feelings, and that we should be pursuing this highest form above even happiness or pleasure. And here's why. Pleasure and happiness are fleeting. Pleasure only exists for a moment in time and then it's gone. It's why lust is so problematic. To be blunt, you're constantly chasing the pleasure of an orgasm, but when you finally get one, it literally lasts seconds. It's the same for all forms of pleasure. It lasts a split second and then it's gone with the wind. Now, happiness isn't exactly the same, but it's similar because it's situational. You're happy when you're in a good romantic relationship, but how about when your partner messes up? You're happy when you've got a good job, but how about when your boss pisses you off? Happiness is easy come, easy go. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like pleasure and happiness are inherently bad things. Pleasure is phenomenal in a good context, like eating a good pizza gives you pleasure, but the context is very important. Is this your 20th slice of pizza this week? Because then you're probably chasing pleasure way too much. Now, otherwise, is this a good slice of pizza after 2 weeks of eating healthy and treating your body right? Probably a little better to experience the pleasure then. Pleasure tends to only be good in moderation. Happiness is also obviously a good thing. I mean, who doesn't want to feel positivity? Happiness is very good, but it can't be the ultimate goal in life because life will inevitably throw your happiness out the window at some point through no fault of your own. Joy and peace are superior emotions because joy and peace can be permanent and unconditional. Joy can exist in the absence of pleasure, so that even when you're not winning the lottery or getting famous or having sex, you can still feel satisfied with your life because you understand that while those things, they can be nice, they're not what life is all about. Joy can exist even in the absence of happiness because happiness is just a good mood, a positive vibe. But sometimes, like I said, your romantic partner messes up. That'll upset you and rob you of your happiness. But joy is finding your center and your worth in that situation and being able to respond appropriately because you're still able to keep the good things in mind even while fighting. People who lack joy and live off of happiness tend to allow their emotions to rule over them. When they're in a good mood, everything in life is perfect. And when they're in a bad mood, all things are miserable. Joyful people, on the other hand, they understand life more deeply and are at peace no matter what happens. They're still sad when it's time to be sad, and there will be times to be sad. They're still angry when it's time to be angry, but importantly, they never lose sight of how thankful they are for every detail of their lives. We should all strive for that ideal. It would make all of us better people. It would make the world a better place if only we realize that joy and peace are better than happiness and pleasure. Number 10, forgiving gets you back to living. Last but certainly not least, the 10th major lesson that I learned in my 20s is all about the importance of forgiveness. And I'll make this one short, sweet, and to the point. I'm not perfect. you're not perfect. I know, newsflash, right? You're not God's gift to planet Earth. I'm not God's gift to planet Earth. You're not the greatest human being who's ever existed. I'm not the greatest human being who's ever existed. So, don't get me wrong. You are special, but you're not more special than your neighbor. And that's the crucial fact of reality. We're all equals. You're no better. I'm no better. If we acknowledge that we're not perfect, then we're acknowledging that we mess up. And if we're honest, we mess up pretty freaking often. And in order to move forward, we pretty constantly need other people around us to forgive us when we screw up. This is the same exact logic you need to apply when it's your turn to forgive someone else. Remember, we're equals. So if you deserved some forgiveness, maybe spare a little for your neighbor too. Besides, not forgiving someone is just you locking a door that's in front of yourself. Why would you do that? You can't move forward. There's no progress. You're just going to stay there and stare at the damn door until you decide to unlock it and open it. And contrary to popular belief, no, the other person is not the one who can unlock that door. A lot of people think that the key is their apology. But their apology is not a thing that benefits you. Apologizing only benefits them and their inner growth. But it really doesn't affect you because you can still choose to not forgive them, even with an apology. You can also choose to forgive them even without an apology. The apology is irrelevant. The sooner you learn that, the better. That locked door is there in front of you strictly because you haven't forgiven them. And you've got the key in your pocket. The key is forgiveness. And you should just forgive and move forward whenever possible, because what on earth is the point of staying stuck, trapped inside the same spot perpetually? And notice, the analogy here is to open the door so that you can move forward. That doesn't mean forget what happened to you. That doesn't mean go back to having some happy-go-lucky and possibly fake relationship with whoever wronged you. Whenever that's possible and appropriate, yes, of course, you should really forgive the other person and go back to having a good relationship. But sometimes that's out of the question, and that's okay. Forgiveness isn't about repairing the relationship necessarily. It's about not allowing someone else and what they've done to rule over your life. You should rule over your life. Period. Holding grudges keeps you stuck in a rut. But forgiving, well, it gets you back to living. And there you have it. Those are 10 lessons I learned from my 20s. They were all pivotal for me in my personal journey. And I kind of wonder if anyone's actually going to watch this video. I'm making this more as a time capsule for myself. One day, hopefully, I make it to 40 years old and I'll make another 10 lessons that I learned from my 30s. In case there is an audience here watching, please like and subscribe, as it helps me out a ton. And if you've got any extra life lessons that you learned in your 20s, feel free to comment them below. As you can see, I don't exactly have a ton of subscribers, so I'll likely be responding to just about everyone who comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.